Alright, so while the 6 of you were watching the video on the sound trailer or the food trailer or whatever you want to call it, I was in the front yard pushing back the tree line, cutting stuff down, trying to reclaim part of our front yard. Once I got that yard reclaimed, I realized anybody walking down that road can see my hot tub. And nobody wants to see my naked butt getting in and out of that hot tub. We don't want to create a traffic jam in a town of 600 people. So I grabbed some of the original 1970s metal that came off this, what became the garage, and went out and built what I've been referring to as a redneck privacy fence. I think it turned out okay. So the next few days after that, I became a little less motivated for making videos. And then I ended up with a lower back issue that I've been nursing for about 5 going on 7 days now. Do your own math, I don't know. So my motivation level for making videos is extremely low, but at the same time, it's not like I can do anything. So when I'm not making videos, I tend to watch a lot of YouTube videos. It got to the point that the little new to me tab was showing me stuff I've already seen. I came across one video, it's a pretty cool video, and I thought, well, if I did that, I would have done such and such and blah, blah, blah. We all do that. But I'm thinking, how did it turn out in the long run? The video was a year ago. I went through the channel, couldn't find an update on it, and I got to thinking, well, you've done all these projects. What would you have done different on each one of those projects if you had to do it all over again now that you know how to do it? Let's find out. Let's go through all of my projects and see what would we have done different if we had to do that project from the beginning all over again. We'll keep each one as short as possible and explain what we like, what we didn't like, and why we would change it. Alright, so right off the bat, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Actually, it's in the front yard. And no, that's not a big girl joke. I actually like big girls. What we're talking about here is the fire pit. So what would I have done differently? Well, the first thing I would have done different is on the video, I would have explained exactly what was going on with more detail. You see, that truck came from the junkyard. It had to go back to the junkyard. That was the agreement with the junkyard. And the junkyard would not sell me that entire truck. Not that it would have done any good. The truck doesn't have a title. And in the state of Florida, if you don't have a title, it's very difficult to do anything with a vehicle legally. So that truck had already been obligated to go to the car crusher. So I had to return the unused portions of the truck so that they could crush it. At least part of the truck got a second life with a little bit of coolness to it on top of that. So I robbed everything off the truck that I could get, the floor pan, which obviously went in a stupid truck, and then the trim, which I've got tucked away, and the usable parts of the truck. Of course, now the bottom half of the body, for the most part, was rusted out, except for that one floor pan, which did have some rust on it. Nonetheless, I would have explained the fact that I could have kept that truck, but then I wouldn't have been able to do any business with that junkyard in the future. More importantly, I told the guy I'd bring the truck back to him. I try to tell somebody the truth, keep my word, because, well, I want people to keep their word for me. Now, as far as the project goes, there's 2 different things I would have done different on that fire pit. So if I had to do this project all over again, the first thing I would have done was make my cut line about 2 inches lower, which would effectively have made this sit 2 inches higher off the ground, which would have put my body line 2 inches further up. Why? Because every time I go to cut grass now, I've got to weed eat this all the way down to the ground in order to see that body line. More importantly, that's not to mention that as you cut the grass decays, that creates more dirt. Eventually, I'm going to have to come in here and get rid of some of this dirt, which means I got to wait another 3 months for the grass to grow back and fill it back in. Speaking of which, there was a lot of people making fun of the fact that I just painted this truck without, I guess, taping off the dirt. Whatever. It only took 3 months for this grass to grow in, and that was during the winter, so yeah. On the front windshield, what I did here is I sprayed it with some primer from the inside. That gave it a smoked, like fogged up look. And then I sprayed these windows with some flat black paint. And of course the glass creates gloss and it looks like limo window tint. The back window, however, was already tinted. So I did not do anything with it. Unfortunately, the heat from all the different fires has caused that tint to start peeling off. If I had this project to do all over again, I would have pulled that tint off and painted the inside of that window with some gloss black. And at that point, you'd never see that ant bed right there. Of course, now when it's dark, which is typically when you build a fire, you don't really see that. But every time I see it during the day, it just drives me nuts. And eventually I'm gonna have to open up that cab and get rid of that tint and paint the inside of that glass. But for now, we're just gonna deal with it. Let the heat finish taking the tint off the glass much as possible so I don't have to fight with that tint. All right, this ain't moving as fast as I wanted it to, so let's speed this up a little bit. Tool Talk video got 1,700 views in the last month, and that made me revisit the video as well as the tool. And I stand by everything that I said. I will add, though, that the tool works flawlessly as designed, but it has a design flaw. This point and that point do not have enough separation. They are too close together, and therefore you don't get that bigger flange that I was looking for, especially on something like 16 gauge. You want 16 gauge worth of flange in it, and you don't get that. Now, whether or not there's some quality control issues, and all I can say is if you're gonna get one, the hole punch makes it worth buying. The flange tool, not so much, but open the box and look at the tool and see if it has enough separation. But if there's not enough separation from here and there, then it might not do what you need it to do. So I did a video called Project Make Wife Happy, which honestly isn't that hard to do. Now at the end of this video, I made reference to the fact that the building needed to be painted. Obviously it was. Looks much nicer now. And it fixed all that crap that was going on around the TV with the black paint. Now, the one thing I would have done different here is I would have designed a better hinge system because, well, those shocks were too stout and they bent my hinges, and now I can't put the hood down. So I'm eventually going to have to rebuild the hinge system, but I'm waiting till after the hot tub gets done. I also put a door in under the TV. That gives you access to a DVD player and a sound bar. And when you're not using the TV, close the door, keep it out of the weather. The 3D sign video actually incorporated 2 projects. The first of which was the monogram that went at the end of our driveway. Now I know this is going to sound a little bit sarcastic, but I promise you it's not. I'm very proud of my wife. It only took her 9 days to notice that that was on the wall. And then we chose a color and painted it, got some color separation. I think it turned out good. The other project is obviously the 3D lighted sign. The one thing I would have done different on this thing was I would have sanded that back down and sprayed that red instead of brushing it on. In the evening you can see the level and the unsmoothness, is that a word? I don't know. And I would have done a better job of painting the white in the back. You can see it starting to rust up just a little bit in there. and I'm not happy about that. But then again, on the other end of the spectrum, it might give it a more of a natural appeal once it gets a little bit of rust on it, give it a little bit of patina on itself, and we'll see what happens there. The tailgate bench seat, it's one of my favorite projects because I took an idea that I saw somewhere and then modified it and made it fit my needs, and this is what we came up with. So what would I have done differently here? Absolutely nothing. I ended up putting some LED bulbs in the original taillights, and at night it looks absolutely wonderful. Now, if you saw the quick question video, what do I do with it? Somebody commented on that video and gave me a really good idea.
What's in the box?
She's heavy.
Pretty heavy.
This is something good.
It makes great Christmas gifts.
What the hell?
Don't do that.
I don't get it. Why would you send this?
On the Raise the Roof video, there were a few people that asked, why did I bother putting the spring assist back in the trailer if I'm going to use it as a food truck, because you don't have to have a drop down back door in a food trailer. But the simple fact is, it's going to be a little while before we finish that project. Therefore, I'd like to be able to use it as a trailer between now and then. That being said, why did we bother putting the plywood back in when we know we're going to have to pull it off in order to insulate it and run electrical and all that good stuff? Because that plywood is structural. Don't ever let someone tell you different. Take the plywood out, push on the wall, you'll see the whole building rack. So we put the plywood back in until we get to the point that we're going to finish that project. And as far as my redneck privacy fence goes, I think it turned out pretty well. More importantly, we reclaimed about 10 feet of our yard and pushed the tree line back another 5 foot on top of that to keep the brush from making noise up against that metal fence. Still need to clean my crap up though, don't I?